All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. Uh, Welcome to tonight's NSL, or Night Sky Live, here at Kopernik Observatory and Science Center. For those that are not from the area, we are located in Vestal, New York. So whenever we speak about timing, like I just mentioned in the chat, we're getting started right at 8:30. That is currently in EDT, or Eastern Daylight Time. We're about to transition into EST not long from now once we get into November. So we'll look out for that. But tonight is about getting a little bit into the lunar eclipse that's also going to happen in November. We'll talk about how you might see that event where you are, how you can photograph that event, or shoot the moon with your own devices. And we'll do some lunar observing tonight as well, because according to the forecast, it will be clear. So I'd like to start there, in fact, because I'd like to show you our conditions outside. And let me switch to our observing cam here. Ooh, and it is improving. So there we are. These are the live conditions of our skies up at Kopernik. This is the eastern sky, a little southeastern, but eastern sky. And also in this window, at the very top, you'll see the date and time and the forecast, or in the weather, current temperature outside. It is pretty chilly out there tonight, but I'll be able to talk to you in the comfort of the Science Center, and just remote out to the observatory with the equipment for the most part this evening. So in that image, though, again, that is a live feed just outside the Science Center on a wide field camera. You can see it's a little bit cloudy. The forecast above says it's mostly cloudy, but I think it's starting to improve dramatically. So we'll continue to monitor that for the first half hour or so and see how it improves. We're going to start, once we have a good consistent sky, we're going to start by just viewing the moon through a wide angle camera, and then we'll move on hopefully to the 6-inch telescope. We'll hook that up. But really the first part of this show is about the lunar eclipse and covering how you might see that event where you are. So let's move into this page here. All right. So here is the our website, kopernik.org, where you can find out more about our upcoming programs. Of course, on our homepage, you see the lunar eclipse preview. We post both our live stream only events and our hybrid events and our in-person only events. So if you're ever in the area, definitely try and come visit us. We're open every Friday night for a presentation and an observing session. Of course, you might know those as our FNL, or Friday night live streams. And those are available as a presentation on our YouTube channel as well as in person. And then afterwards, if you're up at our site, you can go out and look through the telescopes yourself and enjoy our beautiful night skies here, like we saw in the footage just a moment ago. All right, if we scroll down the page here, you'll see one of those FNLs coming up at 8 p.m. Doors open at our site at 7:30, but at 8 p.m. we get the show started. And this one is presented by Adam Flint, the Director of Clean Energy Programs at the Network for Sustainable Tomorrow. And he'll talk to us about how to transform your home with clean heating and cooling technologies. So I'm looking forward to that presentation, as my background is in sustainable energy systems. Next up, we have, at least on our homepage, we have this Halloween program called Hocus Focus. Now, this is only an in-person event, and we have 3 sessions, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 8 o'clock. That's on October 29th. We're going to transform Kopernik into offer spooky tours and some treats as well as people go around the observatory. And it'll be a fun time. This is the second time we've run this program. The inaugural event was last year, and everyone seemed to really enjoy it. So we're going to keep it going with Hocus Pocus. So there is going to be registration for that event. Stay tuned for more details about that. We just realized there was so much interest, we can only accommodate a certain number of people at our site. We're not a huge place by any, but we can fit 200 people up here at a time pretty comfortably inside the building. So we're going to do our best to try and make that work. And just stay tuned for those registrations coming through soon. You'll be able to register online, and we'll make a big announcement about that. If you go up to the top, you also have a full list of our fall programs. Now, if you're watching Kopernik content strictly online, this is also available on our YouTube channel. You'll see all of our upcoming live streams for the fall. But this is another place that you can go to see those in a in-person context. So we have lots of great fall programs coming up, all the way to the end of November, where we run our classic Black Holes on Black Friday event. And that's presented by Roy Williams, one of our educators here. So a full slew of programs available to you, and we hope to see you either virtual or in person for those. This is an unscheduled Night Sky Live. We didn't originally plan this, but I saw the skies were going to be clear. We were going to have an almost nearly full moon. I thought it'd be a good time to chat about the lunar eclipse, because today is October 8th, and the lunar eclipse happens on November 8th. So we're a month out from that event coming soon. Now, actually, that reminds me, I'd like to, let me bring it up over here first. And we'll go to our channel, because I'm going to bring you to the YouTube page here, which of course is available for you to explore. If you just click our channel icon in this video alone, it would bring you over there. But this is our YouTube channel, and it's just Kopernik Observatory. If you're not subscribed, please do. It'll keep you up to date on big observing events, and it will also give you access to all of our FNLs, which are, again, Friday night live streams. We hold one every Friday. Our NSLs, our Night Sky Live programs like this one, observing live streams. And we also do these new programs called KRXNs. And if you know your chemistry, RXN is short for reaction. So those are our Kopernik reaction videos, mostly on big NASA missions. So we covered the DART impact. If you didn't see the DART impact, you can go to that video or NASA's official stream and watch the DART satellite crash into asteroid Dimorphos. It was a really neat event. You got to watch it live. There was basically there was video. It was very stuttery video, but it was effective. And then all of a sudden, it was just gone. The satellite crashed into the object. So go back and watch that if you missed it. There is a bunch of photos too from the aftermath, and now they're checking to see if they did in fact change Dimorphos' orbit. So we'll see if that was the case. But we'll do more of those. Right now, our next one is planned for the Artemis 1 mission, which is delayed until November now, because they wanted to make sure they could get Crew Dragon up in October here, which they did. So that was a success, and now they'll move towards Artemis 1. Of course, Hurricane Ian affected that launch. All right. So that about covers my little intro here. I think now it's time we get into talking about the lunar eclipse event. And of course, I promise that I will monitor the chat a bit here as well. I always like to engage with you in the live chat and talk about, well, answer your questions and just chat with you in general about the night's topic. In fact, why don't I do that a brief moment here? See if I have any questions or comments that I'll point out. Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm doing quite well. Hopefully you are as well. Philip Smith says they just got a really good shot of the moon. Now, of course, you can't share photos in our live chat, but this is a big point I want to make, and I'll make it again tonight, I'm sure. We're going to talk about how you can photograph the moon with your own equipment, and what we're trying to build is a good connection with Kopernik, where you can share your photos with us, and we can share them out to the world. And probably the best way to do that is through Facebook. But all of our social media are linked in the video description. So if you ever want to share a photo that you took with us, so that we can engage you outside of just these live streams, please do. That's a great place to go to continue the interaction beyond YouTube. So again, the links for our social media are in this video's description. So you can go there, click on that, and post a photo. So if you do that at any point tonight, definitely bring it over to Facebook. And oh, we got a donation as well. Thank you so much for your donation. If you are in a position to support Kopernik through a donation, you can click on the heart in the chat, and you can do a custom amount. They give you some set amounts, and that is a great way to show your support. We are a nonprofit facility, a nonprofit organization, so every little bit helps and keeps this resource in our community and beyond around. All right. Oh, I did get a question from Mike here about distinguishing between waxing gibbous and waning gibbous moon. That is a fantastic question, and I think it's something we can cover as we head into the lunar eclipse discussion, our lunar eclipse preview. I'm looking in, let me transition to this here for just a moment. Go back to the live video. You can see the branches of our trees blowing in the wind there, and the clouds have dissipated quite a bit now. So hopefully that keeps up. You can see the moon just at the very top of the view, and eventually we're going to frame that up a little bit better when we go outside, and we'll see Jupiter and the moon together. They're pretty close tonight, but we'll also zoom in on the moon and maybe switch over to the 6-inch telescope too, so we can get really close. So that's the plan here. Okay, so we'll go back and talk about Stellarium. All right, so this website is in the video description. So if you want to access it, it is available there, stellarium.org. And this is really a portal to either downloading it or getting onto the web version. So you can download it for Linux, Windows, Mac, available on all three of those platforms. And then there's a web-based version that you can use on smartphones or Chromebooks if you only have a web browser in that instance. So a lot of this, for those that have been to Kopernik streams before, is going to be a little rehashing, but we always have new viewers coming into the channel, so I like to set the scene each time. So bear with me here. So over the next maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So yeah, if we go into Stellarium Web, this is really designed to be your at-home planetarium. So if you've been to a planetarium before, I mean, we have one at Kopernik. It's a portable planetarium, an inflatable dome with a projector system that we bring to schools and libraries across the area. And our nearby museum, Roberson Museum, has a really nice brick and mortar planetarium, meaning it's almost a theater you go into. And those are fantastic systems. They give you a really nice immersive view of the sky, almost like you were viewing the real thing. But maybe you want to explore the sky at home, and that's exactly what this will do for you. So it gives you the ability to control the sky, where you're pointed, and I'll show you how to navigate that a bit as well. If you want to download it on your smartphone, there is an app. I believe it is a paid application, or there might be a light version too, but the version I've seen recently was a paid application. Well worth it in my opinion, but there are some free options out there as well. Starwalk and Sky Guide, I believe, both have free options. Some of these carry in-app purchases too, but if you try the free one and you get what you need out of it, that's all you need. If you want to continue to grow your knowledge of astronomy and you realize you could use some more features, then you pay a little bit. But yeah, easy to scale up in that case. There are a lot of programs that you can use. One in particular that is more expensive, but I think well worth it if you're a seasoned astronomer or looking to really engage in this science, is Sky Safari. And that one lets you plan your observing sessions, what objects you're going to look at a given night. It gives you options for field of view. So if you have multiple cameras or telescopes and you want to combine them to see what they might do, what they'll show you in the sky, that is a very helpful tool. I've used that a number of times preparing for these live streams to make sure I have the right equipment for the job that will display nicely on your feed. I'm going to switch back while I'm talking here for a moment to the live feed, just because there's a really nice contrail being left behind by a plane that's being it's glowing from the moonlight. You can see it flying right at the top of the screen there. So I just noticed that in the field of view over here. So I thought I'd share. Kind of a cool image. So yeah, we'll bounce back to Stellarium here. And let's get rid of this. And we will, yeah, that actually is pretty close. I think that is right on top of our location. So you can set this up for where you are. You can just use your computer, your GPS or location services inside your computer to activate. There's also auto location. Or you could just pick and choose from the map. Either way works for you. And that sets it up because, of course, the skies are going to change depending on where you are. In a very local area, it won't change much, but if you're moving a lot, or if you're watching this from hours away, especially in latitude, this is going to change a little bit. Or if you're different in longitude, you're on the west coast. It'll be, but the same latitude. It'll be similar skies, but it'll be delayed. You still have some daylight on the west coast, for instance, whereas here on the east coast it's nice and dark. So similar skies, but different times. So that's why it's important to make sure you give it your location. Then you have your time window here that lets you adjust your month, day, and year, and your time. This is in 24-hour time or military time. So this is 8:50, and this is the current time at Kopernik. Again, this is Eastern Daylight Time. All right, and then you have these buttons on the bottom. Constellations bring up the lines and the names of each constellation. So you're connecting the dots with the stars and telling the story, many stories in mythology. Then you have the artwork to actually show you what some of these stories are supposed to be. Over here we have the atmosphere that you can turn on and off. You can see if we could get rid of the Earth's atmosphere, our skies would be so nice. But of course, then we couldn't breathe. So good we have it here at the surface. And that's where space telescopes are very helpful, like the James Webb that launched at the end of the year in 2021 and has been delivering us some amazing pictures of the cosmos. That's because it's huge for one thing, but it also is able to bypass the Earth's atmosphere because it's at the L2 Lagrange point. Then there's landscape. So if you want to see what's below the horizon, you can do that. You can turn off the ground. You have your grids, your azimuthal. So this is representing alt-az, altitude and azimuth. So each of these horizontal lines is a large step up in altitude. And then you have your vertical lines stretching down. And that is your azimuth. And then there's the equatorial grid. So the azimuthal grid, if we travel through time here, let's see. Let's just do this. You see the azimuthal grid is relative to you, your observer on the surface at any given point, and it's not relative to the stars. So the stars move through the alt-az grid. Whereas, let's go back to real time. If we bring up, hang on. That's other Stellarium that was running our waiting room earlier. That's the downloadable version, which works really well too, but it's more advanced as well. So if you're just starting out, the web-based version is the way to go. And of course, it's more accessible as well, no matter what device you have. So equatorial grid, you can see is completely different. And the top of the equatorial grid before with the azimuthal, the top was at 90 degrees altitude. Where you have this crossover, that's at the very peak of the sky, that's your zenith. But you'll see that's not the case for the equatorial grid. With the equatorial grid, you have the top of this sphere, we call it the celestial sphere, at the North Star, or nearly at the North Star. And that's because this grid is basically a projection of latitude and longitude. If you projected our surface of the Earth out in latitude and longitude, this is what you'd get. And that means that this point, if you were to measure from the horizon to roughly where the North Star is, that would be your latitude. So our latitude is about 42 degrees here. So if we measured that distance, that would be 42 degrees above our horizon. A little tip if you ever get lost, because this also points due north, right? That's the North Star there. So this is relative to the stellar background. It's mapped out to it. So if we travel through time here, you can see the stars move with the grid. And if you're wondering, we talked about altitude and azimuth. These grid lines here, this is your declination. So vertical, more or less, is your declination line. And then across, here's one from east to west. That's your right ascension. So right ascension and declination. This means that if you are looking for a particular object and you know its right ascension and declination, it's not going to change. It will change in an alt-azimuth coordinate system, but on the equatorial coordinate system, it's not. It's mapped out to that object. So if we click on the moon here, you'll see you're given right ascension and declination and altitude and azimuth. But if we travel through time, you get that those numbers change dramatically. You are also given the magnitude. Actually, I just realized the moon was not the greatest example of this. I should click on a star. With a star, it's not going to change. You can see right ascension and declination don't change there. With the moon, it will. And perhaps you know why. It's because the moon is in orbit around the Earth. So the planets and the moon wander through the celestial sphere. In fact, planet translates to wandering star. So the moon and the planets will move through the sphere. The stars won't. So the star over here, at least over the short term, how we have it mapped out. Over time, of course, the stars do change their position in the sky. But that's over millions and millions of years where that becomes very apparent. So that star there will not change its point. Okay, so that was a little bit about the coordinate system. It might come in handy as we explain some of this. We'll turn that off for now. There's also deep sky objects. You can turn those on and off. So you could see over here, this is the Andromeda galaxy. When you turn it on, it gives you a little oval, mapping out the rough shape of the object. Just rising in the eastern sky, you have Pleiades. And that's an open star cluster. So again, that's mapped out by deep sky object. There's a night mode as well. And this is important for maintaining your night vision. Now, on a night where we have what's basically a full moon, it's not going to really do you much good. The moon's already going to be messing with your night vision enough. And in the end, with the full moon out, there's not going to be too much to see that's dim in the sky that you want your night vision for. So night mode isn't super critical for full moon during a full moon or even half moon, but on a night where it's nice and dark, there's no moon in your way, use night mode because it's going to maintain your night vision a lot better. Don't shine any white flashlights around. Get a nice red flashlight to keep with you in your observing kit. That is very important when you're out observing the night sky. You'll see so much more once your night vision adapts, but as soon as it sees white light, you gotta wait up a half hour, up to an hour even, to get that back. There's a full screen mode as well, so you can see here in the night mode, of course, my Windows and Chrome UI is showing it the regular color. It's not changing the entire system, but if you full screen it here, that works just fine. All right, we'll turn night mode off though, because like I said, full moon tonight. So that's an overview of Stellarium Web. Actually, one last thing. If you click on the moon here, there's this little target button that'll center you on the object, and you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in. Get right up close to it, just like this. And you can do that with the planets, the deep sky objects. You can see what they look like up close as if you had a telescope of your own. So that's a really good tool as well that we'll use as we explore the eclipse. Like, as you can see, Jupiter and the moon are right on top of each other tonight. pretty close. It's not the closest conjunction by any means. I think perhaps last month Jupiter and the Moon were even closer, but it's kind of cool to see them right near each other. Let me take a brief pause here to see if there were any questions about what we went over in Stellarium. Stacy says there is a free version of Stellarium, of the mobile Stellarium. So check that out for sure. Let's see. Okay, there. Jackie, I think it is, says that they're trying to get a picture of the moon. They have Stellarium on their phone. Yeah, it just takes some practice to get used to Stellarium and mapping out the sky. It's a great tool to have, and you just mess around with it. As over time, you'll get used to it, I think. But at least at the very basic level, it's a great way for figuring out where objects are. So if you just scroll around in Stellarium, moving through the sky, you'll see your compass directions. So for instance, we see the moon between east and south. I know that I have to look southeast to see if I can spot the moon. Now the moon is an easy object. It doesn't take much to find that. But something like Jupiter, like the planets that don't, they're bright, but they don't show you detail without a telescope. Those can be a challenge to figure out what they are. So that's where Stellarium comes in handy. I may have missed your question on Facebook Messenger, or maybe someone, assuming it was the Kopernik Facebook Messenger. So I'll see if I can find that one. And you're wondering how much longer we can see Jupiter up close. It's even better than the night you did the stream. Oh, yeah, we can see it for quite a while. I mean, it'll be nice and bright. And even when it's at, when it's furthest from us, it's still really nice to look at through a telescope. It's just such a big planet, and it is pretty far away that the change in distance doesn't really affect too much. It's noticeably bigger when it's at opposition, like we saw, and when it's on close approach, we saw during the Jupiter stream. But it's not like we can compare it to the moon, like during a supermoon. Supermoons are noticeably bigger. It's not negligible, but when you're viewing at it through a telescope at that time, you don't have a non-supermoon to compare it to. So it really doesn't affect too much for your observing. It was a fun event to cover and a great opportunity to talk about Jupiter. But yeah, you'll have plenty of time to see Jupiter throughout the next few months. So no worries there. And I do hope to cover some. I hope to cover some photography as well tonight about observing and taking a picture of the moon. So let's see. Well, let's move into the eclipse discussion now. And actually, let me go back briefly to Mike's question about waxing and waning gibbous. So right now, the moon technically is waxing still. I think, I can't remember exactly what time tomorrow, but full moon is technically sometime on October 9th. So it's not a full moon tonight. You can see, and we should be able to notice this later, but on the western side of the moon here, of the disk, you can see some shadowing on those craters. And that's telling you that that's where the terminator is, where the light of the moon meets the dark, where light meets shadow, and we're still seeing some of that. During a full moon, you won't. You won't see any of those shadows on the very edge of the disk. So if we progress through time here a little bit, let's see. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Compare it to what we were seeing, and this is tomorrow. So like I said, yeah, tomorrow's the full moon. You can see as we snapped back, a little more shadow was brought out. But really, it's mostly full. It's like 98% full from our perspective here on Earth. So it's still waxing, and waxing means it's adding light. Waning means it's losing light. Now, at any given time, about 50% of the moon's surface is illuminated directly by sunlight, with the exception of lunar eclipses. But outside of lunar eclipses, you have 50% of the moon illuminated, but from our perspective on Earth, we go through phases. So we will have crescent moons and half moons, gibbous moons, and full moons and then new moons. So the gibbous phase is when you're beyond a half moon, but you're not quite at a full moon or heading towards a half moon, the third quarter moon. So we have a gibbous moon tonight, kind of. If we went back in time here, if we went back a night or two, that's really like the traditional gibbous phase. But it'll still be called gibbous up to full moon. So if we go back to our first quarter phase, this is the half moon. You can see because the moon's much darker, some more stars in the background were brought out. If we go back in time even further, as you add shadow to the moon, well, there's a satellite too. This will track satellites in here. But yeah, if we go back to current time, the gibbous, as you are waxing, a waxing gibbous, back a couple days, you'll notice on the western side of the moon, that's where you'll find the shadow. So if you have shadow on the western side, this is strictly on the western side of the moon. If you think of the moon just as the disk of the moon here, this is your south, this is the south, the north, and then over here would be west and east. Kind of arbitrary in this case. North and south matter most here, but we'll just consider this west and east if we were looking at it on a map. When that shadow is on the western side, that means that it is waxing. All right, let's prove that. If we go to our nearly full moon and then the full moon tomorrow, and then we're going to head towards waning, on the eastern side, you will have the shadow appearing. And you can see this is a waning gibbous now. We'll keep going through time. We'll get more of that gibbous shape. Oh, it looks so warped because I guess it's on the horizon there. Simulating some of that atmospheric artifacts. But yep, this is still gibbous. If we back up time here, we'll get to that third quarter moon, and eventually you get to your new moon, where you don't have any light showing up. This is a waning crescent here. This is your new moon, and then you get to your waxing crescent. And again, you'll see the shadow is occupying the western side of the moon. whereas before new moon, the shadow occupies the eastern side of the moon. All right, that's the way I remember it, at least. All right, back to our current moon here. Okay. And let's, now that we know how to navigate the moon in this case with the time and we went through the phases, let's find the lunar eclipse that's going to happen on November 8th. So we're going to go a whole month ahead, and this is going to be really easy because we just click up. And I'm actually going to go back to the 7th, November 7th, because if we were on the November 8th here at 9 o'clock, that's actually after the eclipse event. So this eclipse happens in the morning on November 8th. So if we want to skip through time here to watch it, we got to go to November 7th so we can watch it step by step. All right. So let's go minute by minute here, and I'm going to bring us to when the eclipse, or just before the eclipse starts. We are scheduled to begin our program at 2:30 a.m. Oh, and there we go. I already went too far. Let's back it up here. So by starting at 2:30 a.m., we get ahead of the first stage of the eclipse, so we can look at the full moon. That's how we started our stream in May as well. We wanted to show you an image of the full moon, and then proceed into the eclipse event, starting with the penumbral phase. Now, we already have a good tool for you available on the Eclipse live stream page, and this is where we're going to stream it. So again, this is our upcoming live streams. So all the way up to November 8th here, we have the total lunar eclipse night sky live event, and in the video description, you will find the times of each stage of the eclipse. And this is going to be different for us compared to the May lunar eclipse that we covered. But it's going to be kind of, at least unique for me. It's going to be a first astronomical event, first eclipse with a twist, I guess we'll call it. Now, I'm sure others have observed this, but it's just kind of unique to me, and maybe it'll be unique to you too, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the penumbral eclipse starts at 3 a.m. So like I said, our stream starts at 2:30 a.m. Again, this is Eastern Daylight Time for our time zone here in New York. So it is going to be an early bird night owl event, we call them, because yeah, for those that live local to us, you'll have to either get up early, stay up late, or just set an alarm to tune in to the totality portion of the eclipse. So the penumbral eclipse, I'll be honest, doesn't show you too much. The moon won't change too much. It'll start dimming a little bit. Towards the latter stage of the penumbral, you'll start noticing some more significant shadowing. But the beginning of the penumbral isn't super critical for you to watch. Now the partial, and that will happen an hour later, nearly, a little over an hour in fact, happens at 4:09 a.m. And that's where the shadow becomes very harsh. Very dark shadowing there. So that's where things start to get interesting. And of course, that shadow will continue to encompass and envelop the moon until it reached totality at 5:16 a.m. And then maximum eclipse is still totality. That is going to occur at 5:59, nearly 6 o'clock in the morning. The total eclipse will wrap up at 6:41. And about 10 minutes later, that is moonset for us here in Vestal, New York. So at that point, we will not be able to see the remainder of the partial eclipse or penumbral eclipse. The moon will be below our horizon, whereas last time we were able to cover the entire event. But yes, it will be below our western horizon at that point, and we'll see that in Stellarium. But I just want to make sure that you know this is a tool available to you. If you go to that video now, just go to the scheduled stream. You can find that listing there and some information about how we'll cover that eclipse event. The image, the thumbnail here, by the way, these are all pictures that we took during the May eclipse, the different stages. So here you have the partial eclipse exposed to the light of the moon, the brightest part of the moon. Over here you have the partial eclipse exposed to the shadow of the Earth. And again, if I haven't mentioned that yet, if you're new to lunar eclipses, that shadow that's passing over the moon is coming from our planet. The moon is moving through the shadow of the Earth, and that's what causes an eclipse event, a lunar eclipse event. So in this case, we're exposed to that shadow, and you can see the bright of the moon is overexposed. And then finally, this is the total eclipse. And I just love the colors here from that eclipse event. You can see a little bit of white fading into yellow and orange, and then into that deep red. So we got to take that picture together during the May eclipse. That was a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll get another image this time around. The pattern on the moon does change a little depending on how it's passing through that shadow. So you won't necessarily always have the same display of colors across the moon during every eclipse, for every lunar eclipse. It'll change a little bit, again, depending on where it's passing through. It's passing through towards the top of the Earth's shadow, towards the bottom. How long is it passing through? So if you imagine a projected shadow, maybe your projected shadow, in a room, you might notice that you have different stages of shadow. You have the penumbral shadow, which is very wispy, hazy shadow, almost an aura shadow around the harsher shadow in the center. And that's the penumbral shadow that, again, won't change the moon too much. The umbral shadow is what changes the moon. And as you move deeper into that umbral shadow, deeper in towards the center of the Earth's shadow, it gets darker and that redder color starts to show up more and more. So this is closer to the center of the Earth's shadow here, up towards the top, and this is further away. This red color and yellow coloring here is coming from the Earth's atmosphere as the sunlight passes around the moon, around the Earth through the atmosphere. It projects that light, that indirect sunlight, onto the moon still. So the moon isn't glowing its true colors here. It's really just the indirect sunlight passing through the atmosphere. All right. So let's go back here again. That's available to you right now if you want to look up the timing of this event. There's also good websites out there for those that aren't local to our area. Rather than translate those times, you can look it up on Google. See when what your eclipse times are like. Okay, so let's watch the event here. We're at 2:37 in the morning on November 8th. Let's go step by step. Around 4 o'clock, we're going to get the penumbral eclipse. And in Stellarium, I'm not sure how well it's translating over the web here through the live stream. But hopefully you can see sort of this very faint shadow passing over the moon. That's the penumbra of the Earth's shadow. And you can see the moon got a little bit dimmer, which does help with observing a full moon, mind you. If you can knock down the brightness of the full moon, which we will have to do tonight to observe it comfortably, we'll have to bring the exposure down on the camera. Then that way you can actually see some detail on the surface. Full moons aren't often the best moon to observe if you're looking for contrast. The entire surface of the moon during a full moon is very brightly exposed by sunlight, and you don't really get much in the way of shadowing because of that. So that's where your first quarter moons, your crescent moons really shine, because you'll get that contrast along the terminator, and those craters will really pop out nicely. Okay. What else do we have here? Let's keep going. I think we're going to enter, we're actually into the partial eclipse now. You can see some shadowing up here. And this is the partial eclipse. And as that umbra of the Earth's shadow passes over the moon, that red color, that yellow and red color, will become more and more prominent. So you can see it grows and grows. And so even during a partial eclipse, you'll see that red moon. The contrast is kind of neat between the two. But if you're taking a picture of it, that's where it becomes a challenge, because you will not get a high dynamic range picture of it all at once. That's something you'll have to make yourself. By that, I mean you won't be able to, all in one, you won't be able to get a picture of the bright side of the moon and the dark side of the moon here. You'll have to take an exposure, like we saw in the thumbnail, of the bright side and of the dark side, and then stitch those pictures together in post-processing. And even if you somehow had a device that was able to handle that amount of high dynamic range, where you have something really, really dark and something really bright, it's basically going to end up doing the same thing, where it takes those multiple photos and stitches them together, so that you can see detail on both ends. All right, let's keep going here till we get to totality. There it is. And I already forgot, when was our maximum here? 6 o'clock almost is our maximum eclipse. So there's our maximum eclipse, and from there on, we have total eclipse ending about 40 minutes later. You can see that warping. Yep. So this is total eclipse end, and we're into partial eclipse, and then there it dropped below our horizon. So like I said, we won't, my guess is our western horizon is better than our eastern horizon just because of where the domes are placed. We're closer to the trees for our eastern horizon. We're further away for our western. So we have more time to watch this, but we still do have trees over in that direction. So we might not be able to watch it fully. My guess is, let's see, if we zoom out here. That tree isn't a bad example, but we'll get above that. So it looks like 5:30 possibly might be when we lose it behind the trees. So maybe, this is 5:40. Yeah, that might be okay. We're also a little higher up in the domes too, so we can get above the trees in that regard as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I might have to go out and measure a little bit just to see exactly how high up those trees are, and maybe we even put a scope up on the roof where we can really get above to make the most of this. But yeah, that's the challenge of this event in particular. But what is kind of neat and why I really want to make sure we're able to watch as much of the totality as possible, is because you'll notice as we go further into the morning, it's getting below that tree now, but let's just turn off the ground here for a second. This is the horizon where you get all this haziness, and where that compass direction is, that marks it too. You'll possibly be able to see this eclipse in twilight, which is kind of neat. So this is only 6 degrees above the horizon here, but you could, if we turn the camera around, you'll see the sun is just rising. And this is the nature of the full moon, by the way. If we let it cross the, oops, that's too far. If we let it cross the horizon here, when it touches the horizon and it sets, the sun is touching the horizon in the eastern sky and rising. So the moon is effectively at opposition in this regard. It's on the opposite side of the Earth with respect to the sun. So we'll go back here, but it'd be pretty neat to try and capture that eclipse event in twilight. So even at this point, let's see where we are here. We're at 5:26, and sunrise was at like 7 o'clock. Yeah, it's probably not too much twilight at 5:26, but it'll just continue to brighten up from that point. So yeah, we'll see what we can do as far as capturing that twilight eclipse. It'd be kind of neat to see it in a semi-bluish or maybe reddish, I suppose, sky, with a different style to the May eclipse, which was all in the darkness of the night. So we'll see what crops up there. All right. We pop back to current time. Let's go back to 7th, and we'll skip back to the eclipse here. All right. So at this point, I will pause to see if there are any questions about the eclipse event. And I'll read what's here for the moment, but if you do have a question about the event in general coming up in November, this is the time to ask. So someone says, Navy SEALs says, the moon is waxing, but for some reason it's a really pale yellow, banana yellow. That might be because it's just rising up in your sky. You usually get some coloration on the disk of the moon, and that's not because that's what it looks like at its surface at that time. That's strictly because of the way the moonlight is passing through our atmosphere. So it's because we have this barrier of air, and the way it scatters that light from the moon gives it a little bit of discoloration from what it actually looks like. As it gets higher up in the sky, you're looking through less and less of that atmosphere, and you don't have as dramatic of discoloration. So that's a great observation there. But yeah, strictly because of our atmosphere. Randy asks, if we all got together, could we make a shadow puppet on the moon? I do wonder what would you need? I mean, because of course, I'm not sure. This question might be more in jest than anything else, and I'm probably taking it more seriously than I should. But it's fun. It's fun to think about. It's a fun thought experiment. because of course the source of the light is the sun, and to really project a noticeable shadow on the moon, yeah, that'd be... Of course, if you're on the surface of the moon, you can project a shadow, and it would be very noticeable. But you'd have to be down on the surface of it. So really, the Earth is projecting a shadow puppet, more or less, unless you're saying during the eclipse, while the moon is dark, can you project a shadow puppet with an artificial light source on Earth? Now that is another interesting thought. The moon, of course, is 230,000 or so miles away. So to get a light source that's bright enough to reach that, we do shoot out lasers to the moon to measure its distance. That was one of the big Apollo experiments, but that's not going to be any sort of significant amount of light. But you present an interesting thought there. Raven Ray has an interesting comment about kicking enough particles in the atmosphere to change the color. Yeah, and that's why also why the setting eclipse might be kind of neat to watch, because you're going to be looking through more of the atmosphere. The color, the discoloration, just like we were talking about before, might be a little bit more dramatic when you're looking at that red moon through the atmosphere. But you make a good point there with the volcanic eruption, where you have a lot of particles in the air you otherwise would not. That could have a dramatic effect as well. I'll have to look that up to see if there's pictures from that event to see how it shifted the eclipse. Gregorio asks, has the moon been moving differently these past 2 years in comparison to the rest of time, or has it been fairly normal as far as positioning? There's no, over the past, within the past couple of years, no dramatic shift in the moon. There's been nothing to instigate a dramatic shift in the moon. It's a relatively stable orbit in the short term. In the longer term, the moon is drifting away very slowly over time, but it's not significant enough for us to really notice an impact, even in a human lifetime. So, in the short term, nope, the moon's doing well. It's moving as it should. We go through our one lunar cycle once every 30 days or so. One interesting thing about the moon, though, as it goes through its orbit around the Earth, of course, it takes about a month, and we always see the same face of the moon because it's tidally locked. So that's kind of neat because it's the orbital period is matched up with its rotational period. Whereas for us here on Earth, our orbital period around the sun is 365 days. Our rotational period is 24 hours. So we're not tidally locked to the sun. Our one face of the Earth doesn't face the sun at all times. That is the case with the moon with respect to the Earth, though. We only ever get to see one side of the moon at the surface of our planet. If we send a spacecraft out there, though, we do get to see the other side, and they have mapped out the other side of the moon, the opposite side. And it's very heavily cratered. There aren't nearly as many of these, this mare these cooled lava lakes, these dark spots on the moon. We call them seas. They're left over from the blanking on the name here. It's the era of heavy bombardment, something like that, when there was a lot of impacts occurring at the surface of the moon, and so many that it melted the surface and left behind these lakes of cooled lava. So those aren't as prominent on the other side of the moon, mostly craters on the other side. I am putting something together for the lunar eclipse that will show you the other side of the moon. I'm trying to decide if it'll be in our waiting room, if I'll just post it as a video beforehand. But yeah, stay tuned for that. It'll be some nice observations of not just our side of the moon, but the other side as well. And by the way, that other side is not always dark, right? At any one time, like we talked about before, 50% of the moon is illuminated, with the exception of lunar eclipses. So that means that side does see just as much light as our side of the moon. If you're on the sun, for instance, living on the sun, which you wouldn't want to do, but if you're in that zone of the solar system looking out towards the moon, during our new moon, the sun would be experiencing a full moon of the other side, the opposite side that we don't see. So kind of interesting to think about the different perspectives to the solar system. All right, what else do we have here? All right, very good. So let me check my timing here. 9:37. Okay. And bear with me just a moment here. Oh, all right, very good. So let's go view our skies for a moment, see what we have going on there. So this is the current sky outside, and ooh, it looks like it finally cleared up fully. So I might go out there and adjust the camera because I want to give you some visuals to look at because we got to talk about how to image the moon as well. And I would like to try something. This stream tonight is in part a technical test for the lunar eclipse, but I figured why not also chat with you all in a Night Sky Live while we take a look at this full moon tonight, or nearly full moon, and also we'll see Jupiter there too in the sky when I get the wide camera on it. So let me go get that set up outside, and I'll be back in a moment. In fact, I think if I turn on the audio here, I can chat with you out there while I readjust. Let's see if there's anyone out there. Nope, I don't think so. I think we had a couple of people out there earlier chatting, but I don't hear them on the mic, so I think we might be okay. And let me see if that audio is coming through. Yes, it is. So you might hear a little bit of background noise. I think all of our critters have either left or are hibernating or getting ready to, at least. Nothing's going to be really active here at this time of year, because as you can see, it's 42 degrees outside, so everyone's keeping warm. So there won't be much to hear like we did during the Milky Way stream, where we had some crickets and critters making noise. You might just get some wind gusts, but I am going to have the mic turned on, at least when I'm planning to go out there, so that I can chat with you a bit on what I'm doing. All right, so let's head out. I'm gonna bring my chat with me. All right, hello. I think you can hear me. So let's bring this up here. We're going to zoom right in. So there's Jupiter, by the way. Yeah, they're pretty. If you went outside and it's clear where you are, go see if you can find Jupiter and the moon. They're right on top of each other. Jupiter's a very bright star-like object. And of course, then you have the moon nearly full. And if I try and expose this to just the moon, I think we're going to lose Jupiter, or nearly lose it. Let's see what we can do. Yeah. That's too bad. I got to crank down the ISO here. Just make that automatic. Actually, no. I'm going to bring it down into this because this is not a tracking mount. So to maximize the amount of time we have to observe it, I'm going to bring it down into the corner. I'm going to turn off autofocus because that's not going to do me any good. All right, we'll bring it back down into the corner. Jupiter is in there somewhere, but we can't see it because we had to expose to the moon. All right, I'm going to meet you inside. All right, and we are back. I got to say, I am very much enjoying the wireless setup we have going. Not just because it's nice and comfortable inside. I'm going to frame up my astrophoto in the background. There we go. But it's also just very straightforward and easy to use. Very few wires as well, which I am a big fan of. It's pretty cool what we're able to do here. All right. Let's set this up here. If anyone has any questions, by the way, I am still kind of in Q&A mode, so feel free to put those in the chat. All right, looking in the chat here. Any chance we'll see? Linda asks, any chance we'll see any Draconid meteors? There is probably not a great chance of that. At least while we're, well, certainly not while we're exposed to the moon, and also zoomed in as much as we are. We have a very narrow field of view we're working with the current camera outside. But there's a chance if we were to expand that field of view and expose more to the sky, we might catch something. But usually I'm not optimistic when meteor showers fall over full moon, a full moon, or even beyond a first quarter. It really does get in your way quite a bit. But well, we maybe can just keep optimistic as best we can that we might see something come into the view. I do have an Orionid meteor shower stream planned for, I think that's, it depends on what day is going to be clearer. That was my original thinking. So if it's, I think it's either the 21st or the 22nd. Let's find out what I have it set up for as of right now. Orionid. So yeah, our next stream is on October 14th, and that's the Transforming Your Home with Clean Heating and Cooling Technology. That's an FNL, Friday night live stream. And then the following week, we don't have a traditional FNL because of the Orionid meteor shower. And there we're going to have clear sky. Well, I can't promise clear skies, but I can promise moonless skies, more or less. So either the 21st, which is the Friday, or the 22nd. That stream might change. That's actually important to note, that we might change the date of that stream based on our forecast here. So again, that currently is set up for the 21st of this month at 9 p.m. But we'll post a community update and also change it on our website if we find that Saturday is going to be more clear, or maybe even Sunday. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, we are going to cover a meteor shower. We're going to cover the Orionids because that is happening over around the new moon. So much darker skies for that. So, yep, you could tune in there. There hasn't been great luck with the meteor showers this year in terms of the moon. Perseids were also drowned out by the moonlight. So we'll see what we can get with the Orionid meteor shower. And for anyone just tuning in, we are observing the nearly full moon using just a wide-angle camera right now. Zoomed in using a telephoto lens. And the camera is in video mode, by the way. All right. So let's see here. I don't see any questions coming in the chat. So while we're observing the moon in our camera, actually, one thing I did want to try, see if I can crop that image at all. Video settings, let's see. This will do it for us. Let's try this. What does that look like? Okay, all right, let's see. There we go. A little bit of a cropped view to give you a little bit of a better look at the detail. Actually, I'm going to go back in here and adjust. Back to 1920. And that worked fine. Okay. All right, got questions here. What is the current zoom focal length of the camera? So, of course, the previous view was showing you the raw video that was coming out of it. I in the streaming software I'm using, I cropped it. I think the lens, the focal length it's on right now is the 300 millimeter. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's the max focal length. When I go back out, I'll double check for you, but I'm fairly certain that's the case. It is a full frame sensor, Michael. If you're wondering the exact camera, it's a Sony A7 III. And that rig has served us fairly well for our live streams here, both on a telescope, just outside, on a tripod or tracking mount. On the Milky Way live stream that we did, when was that? It was about a month ago. I think it was sometime, maybe even in August, end of August. Let's double check. Yeah, August 27th is when we covered that. We used this camera there as well, and we got to we got live video of our night skies here and of the Milky Way. So it wasn't just a frame by frame. It was, well, I guess at some points it was 4 frames a second. Other points it was 10 frames a second. But either way, it was more or less live video captured of our night sky. So I could point things out to you, and it wasn't necessarily a totally stuttery mess on the end, on the streaming end of things. I'm Bree donated $20. Thank you so much, I'm Bree. Or Imbri. I'm not 100% sure, but thank you all the same for the donation. If you are in a position to support Kopernik through a donation, you can click the heart on the chat. If you're new to the channel, we are a nonprofit organization, and it's through the kindness of our supporters that we get to continue running streaming events and in-person events like these ones. So yeah, we greatly appreciate your support. And of course, you can also support Kopernik by clicking the thumbs up button on the stream. That shows that you're enjoying our content. It helps YouTube understand what people are enjoying on their platform. And also, you can subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. And if you are brand new to the channel, definitely introduce yourself in the live chat. We'd love to hear, roughly where you're from, maybe like what city you're from, what your skies are like there. We're always looking to see how our audience is growing and just to engage with you through the chat. That's the best way to interact with us. And it's great to see everyone tonight as well, by the way. So actually right now we have about 40 viewers tuning in. So thank you for watching, everyone. We will continue to stream tonight. I'm hoping to get the camera system hooked up to the 6-inch, although that might require an intermission of sorts. We will see what we can do there. All right. Oh, and I'll also point out, too, the current way we have our chat system set up for any new viewers is that we do have it blocked off only to subscribers. And the reason for that is just because sometimes the chat can get a little bit overwhelming. So that's how you activate chat on your end if you're wondering why you can't chat with us. So you just subscribe to the channel and that will give you access. From Lakeland, Florida. Very clear skies. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, we have a new viewer as well that just subscribed. Thank you so much. Viewer from Texas. Awesome. Well, great to have you all tonight. And again, if you have questions for me, I am happy to answer those. Oh, we are losing the moon a little bit here. And of course, the reason for that is because of the Earth's rotation. So we just need to bring it back into view. We are eventually going to have to go back out and adjust that. But for now, actually, I did just think of something I could do in the interim of observing the moon as I get it set up on the 6-inch, because I'm going to have to use the camera that's currently set up outside to hook it up to our 6-inch refractor telescope. But what I might be able to do is get another camera set up off to the side so that you can see how I set up the 6 and get everything targeted, so that we can observe the moon much closer than this view here. Oh, let me transition this so you can see the moon a little better. Heather from Newark Valley, right nearby. Very good. So happy to have you on the stream tonight. Okay. So, yeah, one thing I wanted to cover tonight too is talk a little bit about how you can image the moon on your end with the equipment you have. And I thought the best point to start from was with a smartphone, because almost everyone has a smartphone to use as a photography tool. So if you're going to try and image the moon, that'd be a good way, a good position to start from without having to invest in a lot of extra equipment. So you can do a fair bit with a smartphone nowadays in regard to astrophotography. Though I will say wide angle captures of the stars and the Milky Way, and even of the moon and planets, that's really what you're aiming for with a lot of devices. So the moon is a challenge because it is pretty small in the sky. You can certainly observe detail on the moon with your eye, but I think it's a dime. You know, if we put this in to perspective, like a household item, in this case currency, an American dime, which is a fairly small coin, if you hold that up at arm's length, that's roughly the size of the moon. If you hold it up to the moon at arm's length in the sky. So it's pretty tiny. And our smartphones, of course, are designed to take nice wide-angle shots. They have some capacity to zoom in. You know, some smartphones have telephoto lenses now that might give you 2 times magnification or 3 times, maybe 5 times, or even up to, I think I've seen up to 10 times magnification now. So there are some that certainly have some optical zoom capabilities. And even some smartphones have a high resolution, so that you can, maybe with like a 48 megapixel sensor, you can do some cropping of an image, and you'll notice you still have more detail than you would have had there compared to a smaller sensor, like a 12 megapixel sensor. So that's another possibility for your wide-angle sensor that you have on your device. So like if I hold up my phone on the camera here, we have 3 lenses on this one. There's a ultra wide angle lens. There's a regular wide angle lens and a telephoto lens. And I think on this one it's a 3x telephoto lens. So you get some details. Definitely, certainly some of the contrast on the moon would show up. But as far as crater detail, you're going to be hard pressed to capture that at that focal length. So, and of course, if you were able to scale up at all, so like I said, the max I think I've seen on a smartphone is 10x. You might get some of the crater detail on that one for sure. But yeah, really, it comes down to just trying to get as much detail as you can out of the moon with such a wide sensor. Now, I would argue that with the base camera app on either an iOS or Android device, it is more of a challenge to capture a bright full moon than it is to capture a eclipsed moon. So let me see if I can simplify that. It's easier to capture a lunar eclipse than it is a full moon with a smartphone. It's not impossible to capture a full moon or even a first quarter, a half moon, for instance. It's not impossible to capture that with a smartphone, but it's easier to capture a lunar eclipse. And that's not by design necessarily. It's just because it just so happens to be how those base camera apps work on a smartphone that make it relatively easy to capture a dimmer moon that comes with a lunar eclipse. So let me pause there for a moment. If you have any questions about what I've talked about so far, you can put those in the chat. I'm going to run out and adjust the field of view of our moon here, and maybe I'll knock down the exposure a little bit too, because it did look a little bit overexposed earlier. Although I think maybe I saw some wispy clouds moving in front of it just a moment ago, so maybe that's why it looks not too bad right now. But yeah, let me go make some adjustments. If you have a question, I'll be right back. All right, here we are outside. Let's bring the moon back into the field of view. I'll knock down the exposure just a little bit more here. Let's try that. All right, we're going to head back inside. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, I know why. We're not seeing it because I have to bring it back here. There we go. Okay. So there's our moon. Alrighty. Oh. I thought of an even better way to capture. Oh, all right. Sorry, it's funny how, like I said, some of these live streams are occasionally technical tests, because I think it ends up, I end up making new discoveries in action, in the moment, more often than not, and I just had one of those aha moments. So I think the setup for the 6-inch telescope is going to be even easier than I thought. More than that, my hope is that I can show you almost like a first-person style view, like a vlog version of the 6 inches setup. So that might be kind of fun. Also, if you look carefully, since the moon is right in that lower left corner of your field of view, you'll really notice that it's slowly panning across. It's easier to tell on the side there than once it's in the middle. You have more of a frame of reference when it's in that corner. So you can really see that slight change in position. And again, that's driven primarily by the Earth's rotation that we're seeing that change. All right. So actually, while I'm on that topic, I am going to grab something from my office in just a moment, but let me see if there's questions that I can cover here. There's an extra lens you can buy and snap onto your smartphone. Like a moment lens. Yeah, that's an option too. I think they have, not a sponsor by the way. I always like to make that caveat, but yeah, Moment is an example of a company that makes special lenses for your smartphone that fit onto the baked-in lenses with an adapter. And I think they might have like a 70 millimeter focal length lens. Let me snap a photo here. I can't remember the focal length of the telephoto on this one. Switch to that view. Like I said, it's a 3x lens, but let's see what it says focal length wise. It says main camera 24 millimeter. I don't think that's right. Oh, no, that's not right. Okay, so it is a 78 millimeter focal length. That's weird that it says main camera in the base metadata, but then down below it says 78. Anyways, it's a 78 millimeter focal length. I'm not 100% certain what that attachment lens does, but I mean, you could even get like telescopic, that are more akin to telescopic lenses that can adapt to your phone. So that is an option, certainly. And it was something I was going to get a little more into after our base discussion, because I wanted to present this as like, okay, you have a bare bones smartphone. What can you do when it comes to imaging the moon? And yeah, that's where our conversation continues. So yeah, we'll get into a little bit about okay, what if I have more equipment though? What if I have binoculars, or what if I have a small telescope, or even a larger telescope? What can I do? And yeah, we'll see what we can do there. Someone asking, when is it happening? The lunar eclipse is happening on November 8th, a month from now. So we saw our skies were going to be clear for the full moon. So we decided to cover a nice full moon while it was out nice and clear at our site, and talk about the lunar eclipse in November. That's going to happen, at least in our area. We're in New York. It's going to be about 3 a.m. when it starts. 3 a.m. in the morning, that's Eastern Daylight Time. Okay. Oh, Linda's giving some settings for her camera, her phone. That says she says it has a range of 100 to 400, a white balance of 2300 to 10,000. And that must be the plus or minus 2 or plus 2 to plus 2. That must be the EV, maybe? Well, one thing, if you can automate your white balance, that's usually what I do. As long as you look up at the moon, you see the bright white color of it, the grayish tones in the seas. If of course in your viewfinder you can kind of match that, but more often than not, I've found with a smartphone it does a pretty good job of managing those colors. Even in the lunar eclipse too, it does a decent job there. So I wouldn't worry too much about white balance, but that's of course up to you. If you find it's not quite matching what your eye is seeing. As far as your ISO, the moon is in its full moon state here. It is certainly bright enough that how's that? Is the wind? I'm noticing the camera's getting blown around outside. I'm wondering if. I guess it's not so bad, but maybe I will still mute it just because it's a little bit noisy anyways. So that way you don't have some of that background noise that's outside. All right, so yeah, your ISO you can crank way down. Because more often than not, there's plenty of light coming off of a full moon like this. But if it's a lunar eclipse, that's where things can change a little, and you might need to crank your ISO up a little bit more to capture it. However, I think the best product I got out of my smartphone during a lunar eclipse is in this thumbnail. The image that I used today for this thumbnail with a little arrow pointing to it. That is an image of the May 2022 lunar eclipse that I took using night mode on my smartphone. And with night mode, you're going to get longer exposures. And I think that one, if I go back, my hope was that I was going to be able to mirror my camera tonight, but unfortunately that did not pan out. I'll have to change the system we use to wirelessly stream some of these computers here, but that's all right. I think we can get through some of this verbally at least, and maybe before the eclipse, I'll produce some quick videos, some screen captures from my phone that will show these in detail. But unfortunately, on the live stream, I can't capture my screen. Maybe Zoom might be the answer to that, but we'll see. Actually, that probably would be a good substitute for the current system I'm using in that case. So if I go to my astrophotos for the lunar eclipse for May, that picture I took outside the 6-inch dome, again, that's being used for the thumbnail. I'll give you my settings here. So it did crank the ISO up for that. Now on iPhone, in the base camera app, you have no control over your ISO, your exposure time. The best you can do is tap the screen to try and get the phone to expose to the right levels. And they do give you a slide bar to slightly adjust the brightness of the image off to the side when you tap to focus and tap to expose. And again, just reiterate what I mean by that is when you're looking through the viewfinder on the screen of your image, you can click on an object or a brightness level in the image, and it will expose to that, and it will also try and focus to that object. So you can try that, but it's all made to be very easygoing when you're taking these pictures. I mean, that is the idea behind a smartphone and a smartphone camera, is that it really should be point and shoot. So there aren't really any manual adjustment settings in the base camera app for an iPhone. I would just try and get as best focus as you can, again, by just clicking on the screen. And it's going to, more likely than not, automatically move into night mode. And night mode is becoming more common on smartphones. Even cheaper smartphones might support a night mode. And night mode's pretty cool. It is a way of capturing multiple images and pulling out the best data. It's basically a pretty quick version of image stacking that happens all at once inside your phone, and you barely notice that it's going on. It doesn't take long to usually process the night mode image, but it takes multiple exposures, even at different levels, and it tries to stitch the best data together. And that's all through, if you've heard of machine learning before, it's all background processes that are happening in the phone. So you don't really even need to know much about that at all, because it's designed to be point and shoot. But with these images, using that night mode setting, you're actually able to collect some pretty decent data. And even some contrast levels. Now, I did mention before that I think if I go to the one that I used for this thumbnail, let me double check. I confirm which one that was. It was this one? Yes, it was that one. So that one that I used in the thumbnail was I think a main camera image. Yes, it was using the main camera on the device. So that's just your regular, what you'd expect to see with your own eyes, more or less, in that wide field of view. A 1x camera. So it's cropped, though, in the thumbnail, of course, but you can see some of the contrast there across the surface, some of the shadowing, some of the mare. So that wasn't even using the telephoto sensor on the device. So I was pretty happy with that, and I got some pretty cool pictures of the telescope pointed directly at the lunar eclipse during the May event. So you can get some pretty neat stuff, and you're not getting a lot of detail on the surface of the moon, but that's just not going to happen at the base level, just using a bare bones smartphone. Like I said, the best you're going to do with the best smartphone out there that has a 10x optical zoom, you're going to maybe get some crater detail. You'll certainly get the contrast between the craters on the, where the craters are on the surface and the seas across the moon, but beyond that, you're not going to be able to do much more. And of course, the lower zoom system that you have, if you have a 5x or a 3x or a 2x sensor setup, you'll lose that much more detail as you go down in steps. So now it's then the question arises: is it, if you're in a position to upgrade, for instance, is it worth seeking out a smartphone that has a telephoto if you're interested in astrophotography in that regard? And in general, I would say no. Telephoto, it's great to have as an option. So if you can if you have a smartphone that has one, that's great. Definitely use it for imaging objects like the moon, because it's going to give you the most clarity that you possibly can out of it. But it's not 100% necessary. And I think you can get some decent shots, maybe even using some cheaper methods, like binoculars, if you have a pair of binoculars. And we'll segue into that discussion in just a bit. And we'll transition the moon here. It's really booking it across the sky. All right, let's see what we have here. Heather says daylight savings time starts on November 6th. So that's when so yeah, it will be before the eclipse event. Ah, that's right, because I remember having to confirm that on our, for the stream link that you can visit now for our total lunar eclipse coverage. Excuse me. That is EST, yeah, so 2:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, whereas right now we're in EDT. So we do transition into EST during, just before the eclipse event. Pardon me, I'm going to get a drink of water here. Linda says, white balance lowest number. It is going to somewhat depend on what your screen is showing you at that time. So because everyone's displays are a little bit different, everyone's cameras are a little bit different. So I don't think I can give you an exact number, but what I would say is if you're able to smoothly adjust through those white balance levels and watch the change happen live in the viewfinder, just try and get it to a point where it closely matches to your perception of the moon. Because that's really what it's about. White balance is a matter of color grading and trying to match it up with our experiences. So just try and find that good level that you like, and it approximates what you're seeing. Malik asks, what's happening? Tonight we're just observing the moon right now through a wide angle camera system. I'm going to bring you into the 6-inch not too long from now to enjoy a more zoomed in view, and that's also going to be tracking, so that should help out there. But so we'll go out in a little bit to do that. While we're observing the moon tonight, the nearly full moon, we are just chatting about how you can image the moon, image the lunar eclipse coming up, and what to expect from the lunar eclipse. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we can, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those. We just got through a discussion on imaging with a smartphone, imaging the moon primarily. And again, I recommend using night mode for the lunar eclipse. I do not recommend using night mode if you're trying to image the full moon or any illuminated moon. Direct illuminated, I should emphasize, because of course the lunar eclipse is indirect illumination from sunlight passing through the Earth's atmosphere. But the full moon, like tonight, you don't want to use night mode, because night mode is trying to take what little information is coming into the camera system from stars, maybe the Milky Way, a lunar eclipse, or in your day-to-day just from dim environments. So if you're taking a picture at night in the city, there's not a lot of there's a lot of shadow detail that you're not quite capturing with the base camera. You can activate night mode to bring that detail out because it's going to batch together longer exposure images. And that's actually something I forgot to mention here with my camera. So this says it was a half-second batch of exposures. So my guess is that was, let's see, that was probably a 3-second exposure in night mode. So it works similarly on either Android or iOS devices, but usually you can scale up the night mode. I think on iPhone it goes up to 30 seconds. So you hold your camera steady for 10 to 30 seconds. Actually, the 30-second exposure only activates when it's mounted on something because it will detect the slight shifts in your hand as you try and hold it up, and it will know that you can't accommodate that long of an exposure. So you need to mount it on a tripod. But, speaking of, that's actually a good tool I'll start with on my little show and tell here. Actually, maybe we should do show and tell. I don't know why I'm necessarily calling it that, but we will talk about those devices more after I go out and adjust the field of view one more time. We'll do one more lunar cycle of the moon passing across the field of view of the camera, and then we're going to switch to the 6-inch telescope so we can really zoom in up close and see some of the crater detail. And and I'm going to do a different method for those observations than what we've used in the past, because it's going to give you a hint as to what you can do with your device if you have some extra equipment. So let me go out and I do have a mic set up out there, so I'm going to activate that now so that I can chat with you for a moment out there too. And this is just outside the Science Center that this camera is hooked up to. So let's go out and adjust that view. All right, hello. I'm gonna get the moon back on target here. Give us the maximum amount of time to observe. Right in the corner there. And actually, if I crank the exposure up here for a moment, the moon's gonna be overexposed. But you'll notice, for anyone new to the stream, Jupiter is right nearby. We can zoom out. Jupiter's right nearby the moon tonight. I'm going to bring this back down. Oh, that's the wrong way. Exposed to the moon again. All right, I'll meet you back inside. All right, and I gotta get my other piece of equipment here to show you. Let's see. Got a couple things to show you before we head out in a little bit to look at the moon through our telescope. Oh, you can see Jupiter there, I think. Right in that field of, right in the middle of the field of view there. But let's get back on the moon here. There we go. All right, so let me take a moment to look at the chat. Okay. So, no new questions I see here, so I think we're all right. If you are new to the channel, definitely introduce yourself in the chat. We've got a very friendly audience here, and I'm sure they'd be happy to chat with you. I'd be happy to chat with you too. So you do have to subscribe to the channel to get into the chat, by the way, and that's just to help moderate it a little bit. It does help us on our end, but we'd be happy to have you. So, like I said, we'll let the moon cycle through the field of view here, and we are going to notice just how dramatic. This is a 70 to 300 millimeter lens that's on my Sony A7 III camera. Now, if I was taking pictures of the moon here, I'd be getting quite a bit of detail by, if I cropped the view down a little bit. It would show crater detail. It'd do pretty well. But even with that long focal length on a decent lens, it's still pretty small in the overall field of view. So, and actually the view you are seeing right now is a cropped view. It's a little bit different, even smaller in the full frame that the camera outputs. But that is the challenge, though, without any extra help. And of course, it's even more of a challenge with a smartphone. So you just do what you can with what you have. I mean, that's really what this is about. And as you get more comfortable with imaging, and you realize you want to do more of it as a hobby, or maybe down the line even as a professional astrophotographer, then you scale up and you add more equipment if you find you're enjoying it a lot. But I think it's particularly impressive the state we're at with our smart devices, that they have the capacity to take astrophotos. And again, they do even better with wide field imaging with stars and in the Milky Way, because that's how they're set up. They're not set up to be a telescopic or telephoto system, at least not a dramatic one. So you are limited, certainly, by just the one device. But let's talk about how you can just expand upon it a little bit at a lower cost. So there's a couple things here. First, I mentioned with night mode. Now, again, I'll emphasize that you do not want to image the full moon using night mode on a smartphone, because it's overkill for what the moon is. The moon is very bright. You don't need to use night mode for it. If you do use night mode, it's just going to be an overexposed mess. It might pick up stars in the background, which could look nice. So if that's your goal, you could go that route. But if your goal is to get detail on the moon using your phone during a full moon, night mode's not the way to go. But you could use night mode during the lunar eclipse, because the moon's going to be a lot darker. So that's a suggestion for November. But if you are going to use night mode for imaging, you will end up with a better image by stabilizing the camera somehow. It is surprising how much detail it can pull out through a handheld capture of the sky. But if you can stabilize your device, you're going to end up with a far better product. And that means you just have to find a way to mount it. So one way you could do that is with a tripod. Now, this is a very short tripod. I mean, it does expand its legs a little bit, but it's not... This is just an example I have, and it works pretty well in the field of view. So you could use any tripod. The real trick is to get an adapter that will hold your phone. And this is a pretty decent one here. You could really find any version out there. I'm going to unscrew it from the tripod. And this is just a regular mount. And it could fit onto any tripod. So this is what my mount looks like when I want to take images of the sky. And it has a little locking mechanism on the back that you unlatch so that you can open the arms up and capture your phone and hold it tight. And there's some nice rubber grips inside so it doesn't damage your phone as it squeezes down on it. And it also has a nice grippy texture so it will hold it in place. So you can see it's freely moving with that lock unhinged. And there's a variety of these that have slightly different mechanisms, but the solution, they're all gearing towards the same solution, and that's to hold your phone. So here's another device. This is actually the one we're going to use outside on the 6-inch telescope. We're going to try and capture the telescopic image of the moon using the cameras on this. So we're getting to that point. We haven't quite discussed that yet, but this is a Google Pixel 6a, I believe. So with this, you snap it into place. You can just press into one side, lock it into that side there, and pull on the adapter and snap it into place. And then the locking mechanism latches down. You can even squeeze the sides a little bit just to make sure it's squeezing down on the phone a little, and then snap it. And this is ready to be mounted on a tripod. And it's pretty secure. You can test it out if you want. You can wiggle it around just to make sure it's safe before mounting it on the tripod. And but this is altogether ready to go. Now, actually, one thing you want to watch out for that I just did is I put it right on top of one of the volume buttons. And there we go. Now it's fixed. So we can snap this back down into place. So not ideal if you put it on the power button or volume button. Make sure it's not pressing down on those because otherwise it's not going to work too well. So this is ready to be mounted on the tripod, and you will get the longer night mode exposures out of that by securing it there. And that's the case for, of course, your mirrorless cameras and your DSLRs. You want to make sure that's at the baseline. If you're taking pictures of the night sky, you want some kind of shutter key or shutter button that you can activate the shutter of the camera and take a picture without having to touch it specifically. And there's wireless shutter modes that are out there now. I mean, if you have even like a smartwatch, they make apps where you can take a picture with your watch wirelessly. And that's really nice too. So lots of solutions out there for those things. But yeah, mounting, no matter what camera you have on a tripod, is the way to go. Let's bring the live view of the moon down a little so we have more time here as we continue to talk about these things. Again, if you're just joining in the stream, we are observing the nearly full moon tonight as we talk about imaging the moon both during a full moon and even a lunar eclipse that will happen in November. If you skip ahead to the earlier stages of this video, you will hear our discussion about when you can expect the lunar eclipse. All right, so you can see as the moon's in the lower left-hand corner here, you really get perspective on how quickly it's moving across the sky, and that's primarily driven by the Earth's rotation. All right, so we talked about mounting your phone and hooking it up to a tripod. That's a great first step for capturing images, be it of the stars or even of the moon. But what if you want to move beyond that? What's the next step up from here? How can I use a smartphone device specifically to take pictures of the moon up close? And that's where you have to bring in another tool. And this can be a pair of binoculars. If you just have a basic pair of binoculars at home, ideally binoculars that can be mounted on a tripod, you can set those up and attach your phone. Same thing with a telescope. No matter what telescope you have, if it's like I started with a 70 millimeter Meade refractor telescope, a lens telescope, in middle school. That was my first scope, and I got well, I should say that was the first scope I got working. I think I had one when I was in elementary school too, but I don't think I ever got that one working. It was even smaller and much worse than my Meade 70 millimeter. But you work with what you have, and almost any telescope out there is going to give you a decent view of the moon, because you really just don't need much, in terms of telescopes at least, to push the magnification to get a nice view of those craters. And that goes for a pair of binoculars as well. So, but of course, the smaller the scope, smaller the pair of binoculars, the wider field they're going to be. So if you can get beyond that, if you can scale up a little bit in your telescope, that might be a better route if your goal is to image the moon. It might be a better route than paying for a more expensive camera or a more expensive smartphone that has better optical zoom. It might be the cheaper route in the end, even. So how do you attach it, though, to your telescope or your pair of binoculars? There are a lot of adapters out there, and this channel is not designed to favor one over the other. We just have the resources that we have. So the one I'm going to show you is from a specific company, but there are plenty of options out there for you. So, and some of them might be cheaper options and might be better options. But I'm going to show you one here. And this is the Celestron, I think it's called the Nex YZ adapter. And it's pretty nice because it allows you to make fine adjustments in all three axes. So you can move in and out, up and down, side to side. So it's a really valuable tool. And I got to get my phone out of the tripod adapter that we just put on, because we're not going to be mounting to a tripod. This would be mounting to a telescope. So you'd have your scope mounted to some kind of tripod system, or your binoculars mounted to the tripod system, and then your phone would attach to the eyepiece section of the scope. So this has a phone holder as well. Okay, I broke it. No, I didn't actually break it, but it slides back in. I just pulled too far. There we go. It's a sliding mechanism. There's a track for that section to fit in. So you pull this out and you snap your phone into place. So let's do that. Again, just like the tripod mount, you can just fit it into the lock section there, pull it out, and snap into place. And then you can fit it a little better. It's not quite seated at the bottom. There's a lip right at the bottom there. We'll fit that down. You might have to pull out the latch a little bit and then get it snug. So that's held in there pretty good. It's holding your phone. You're good to go. So what you need to do now is get this attached to a telescope. And this has a eyepiece mount. You can see it's this claw action here. And it's pretty close to the camera system. You can see the cameras on this phone back there. And this hooks on to the eyepiece. Now the eyepiece is what you traditionally look through with your eye. In this case, we're going to be doing that all digitally with the camera on your device. So you need that to line up just over the viewport of the eyepiece. So this claws on to the eyepiece. I'll show you this in more detail when we go out into the 6-inch. I'll show you how you lock it into place. But you can, there's this little screw, retention screw, that you can tighten up against the base of the lever arm, and that will tighten the grip of the claw around the eyepiece. So that's pretty critical too. If you want to make sure you're a nice stable system, nothing's going to fall off, your expensive smartphone's not going to drop on the ground and shatter. You want to make sure that things are as tight and secure as possible. And again, one more time, you have these knobs that adjust your XYZ position with respect to the eyepiece, because you want the camera to line up just right. So you can move in and out. You can move up and down. So here's the phone moving up and down. And then the inner knob moves side to side. So if I was to just kind of estimate here where the eyepiece would be and where I'd want my cameras to be right about like this. You can see the eyepiece holder move right into the camera. Oh, this way. See it, just about see the cameras with the light there. And the eyepiece will align with either of those. I think this one has an ultra-wide and a regular sensor. So ideally, you wouldn't want to be using the ultra-wide. You'd want to be using either the telephoto if you have one, or the main camera, the main shooter, the 1x lens. All right. So that's about what I have to show you at the table here. The next step will be showing you how you can get it attached to a scope and start viewing. In this case tonight, we're going to be viewing the moon, but whatever object you're looking at using a system like this and whatever eyepiece-based optic that you have. This does work on microscopes too, by the way. We've used this a number of times for some of the earth science and biology classes that we have up here that we had over the summer. So that's a nice handy tip too if you're an educator. You can get a mount like that works well on telescopes, eyepieces, binoculars, you name it. Oh, and Michael in the chat has put in a good suggestion for a DSLR or mirrorless camera system that will help you image the moon. And in that case, it is, oops, hang on. I am so sorry, Michael. I think I accidentally, why can't I retrieve that? Okay, apparently I can't reverse that. I'm so sorry. If you wouldn't mind submitting that suggestion again in the chat, I promise I won't accidentally delete it again. But I'll read it out loud because I can see it. I just can't reverse that action. I'm not sure why. I tapped one too many times, I think. I was hoping to highlight it. Anyhow, so Michael suggests using a Canon T7i or 800D with a Sigma or Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter zoom lens. That's a telephoto lens. At 600 millimeters with a crop sensor, you get 960 focal length for $1,200 to $1,400. So yeah, that's that. I mean, that's a reasonable if you're wanting to get into some more in-depth photography, and he suggests it would definitely be great for bird and wildlife photos too. Yeah, with that type of zoom capability, it would be a nice rig for sure. So yeah, if you're interested and willing to invest in a higher set of gear, that might be the route to go. So thank you for the suggestion, Michael. And again, I apologize that oh, good. All right. I'm glad I promise I won't get rid of that one by accident. So let me get the moon back in here. Again, the lens we're using tonight it's on a full frame sensor. It's a 70 to 300 millimeter lens system. All right. So we're almost out of the field of view with the moon here. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat. What I'm going to do right now is set up the phone camera, and I'm going to bring you out to the telescopes. Maybe we'll do a very brief tour for anyone that's not familiar with our equipment here at Kopernik, and then we will move on to setting up the 6-inch for some smartphone-based telescopic views. And I'll show you how to set up the adapter on the scope as well, as best I can, because I'm going to be using the smartphone to show you around as well as the camera for the moon out there. So this one here, and we're going to set it up on this. Okay, here we are. Let's take it out of this here. I would like to rotate this. Bear with me a moment here. Why is this not working? All right, well, we will make this work as best we can here. I was hoping to show you this in landscape, but it does not want to shift the perspective. Which I find very strange. Oh. No, that's not right. All right, well, let me just try this one more time. Like I said, we're going to head out to the scopes in just a moment, but I would like this to work for us here. Let's try it like this. Ah, I think I had rotation lock on. That'd be why. All right, let's try this again. Yeah, that was it. Because you guys are mostly watching on screens that you're probably in landscape. So I prefer to get that figured out for you. So it's a better viewing experience on your end. All right. Mute that for the moment. And yeah, we can switch between, that's fine. All right, so we will now move into, yeah, because we lost the moon on our wide camera, and that's fine, because we're going to go out and set it up on our big telescope. And I need this one. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. let's see if this gets cranked up at all here. Clear up the footage, perhaps. Yeah, it's a little fuzzy. I'm going to turn off that camera and see if this helps here. Drop this person out of the meeting. Little technical issue here. See, that looks good here, but why does it look so bad there? All right, one more time. If not, then we might have to do some troubleshooting offline. All right, back here. We'll capture that. All right, the quality could be a little better, but it's working. So we're gonna roll with this and go out to the scopes together to hook it up to the 6-inch. All right, but you need to see what I'm seeing. So let's do that here. And we'll flip the camera around to start. Transition here. Test, test. Okay, now you should be able to hear me. Let's hear what that sounds like. Testing. Nope, that's not coming through. Oh no, it is. I think it is. I think I know why I'm not seeing it on my end. Hi, Matambale. If you can hear me, we're troubleshooting here. Audio's back. Test, test. All right, not bad. All right, so we were just about to go out to the telescopes here. And get this camera set up on the 6-inch. We've talked about how we can observe the moon with smartphones with a limited capacity, how you can image the moon with a smartphone at a bare bones level. But you work with what you have, right? And of course, you can scale up to a higher end device, like we were just using earlier in the stream, my Sony a7 III with a long range lens, a 300 millimeter focal length lens, and that works reasonably well. But of course, nothing beats hooking up a system to a scope, and that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to bring out the, hang on a second here. I'm going to bring out my other device here, and so I can monitor the chat. And this one that you're on right now, that you're watching on, is going to be what we hook up to the telescope. And we're also going to use it to tour the scopes a little bit too. So I showed this off earlier. This is the telescope mount that we're going to use. And while I'm at it, if the phone's going to behave for us here, it's a little bit dark. We'll see how it does outside. I doubt it's going to be able to capture the computer system and camera outside very well, but we'll see what we can do. I also got to get my keys at the ready. So we're in the Science Center now, and we're going to go out to the observatory next. And I'll need this key here. So if I flip the camera around, this is our doorway out to the telescopes. Heads right outside to the observatory there. You can see in the nice red glow. And in the sky, you can see the moon. And let's see how it very dark. You can see, oh, actually I'm on the laptop, aren't I? I'm gonna go mute myself over there so we don't get double speak. All right, so now my volume should be off there. So this is the camera gear, which you won't probably be able to see very well. But this is the camera system that was imaging the moon earlier, and the camera that was streaming that out. Or the computer that was streaming that out, I should say. All right, and we're going to go into the observatory. I'll turn some lights on. All right, and hopefully it's still streaming okay. I'm going to check the chat in just a moment to make sure. But yeah, here we are out at the observatory. And we have three telescopes, three dome telescopes. The Sarton 6-inch super planetary refractor. That's the one we're going to use tonight. We have the 14-inch reflector. That's a Celestron Edge HD. And down here, we have our largest dome, the 20-inch reflector. So lots of equipment inside as well, inside the lobby here. Lots of Dobsonian telescopes. Those are portable. And our largest Dobsonian-like telescope, we call this the Springsonian. This is a similar design to those, but it's a 12.5-inch mirror. And this is actually the counterweight that goes on top of it. So it ends up being a very tall telescope. Now Celestron on a AVX mount. That's not my telescope, but it's the AVX is the same system. That's what I use as well. These little scopes, these red scopes, are called astroscans. They're currently hooked up with a sun funnel for solar observing. Let me check the chat to make sure that it's streaming out okay. Oh, it looks like you guys can still hear me, so I'm glad it retained that. Madame Bale says, I heard there was a face on the moon, didn't realize it looks so much like our Mr. Cartie. That's good. Yeah, I know, it was really cropped view there. All right, so let's head into the 6-inch. I gotta turn the lights on in there. Oh, they are on. Okay, we're good to go. All right, so here is the 6-inch refractor. And this was a telescope made by Astrophysics, a company that makes some really nice pieces of kit. This is an f12 focal ratio. It's a really long telescope, and it is just great at viewing the bright planets and the moon. And why don't you follow along with me while we set it up. So this is the observatory itself. And that's our window to the moon and to the sky. So we're going to get this opened up here. Interesting doing this one-handed. But we'll get it to work, I think. There we go. Got to have a chain to hold things together. And there's this pulley system here. I just turned on the motors to move the dome, so I didn't have to move the ladder. I am lazy. And we'll open this up. All right, here we are. I think that is that little star up there is Capella. Might be. I have to take a closer look. There's a little star out there right next to our radio tower, which you might just about see. All right, but let's go find the moon. I got to rotate the dome. There we are. So there's the moon and Jupiter. So there's like a little minor conjunction tonight between those two. Now, here we have the finder scope. That's what I'm going to use to target the scope on the moon. It's a nice wide field, so it's really easy to pick up whatever object you're trying to observe, get it centered in this, and then these two are aligned as closely as possible so that whatever shows up in the center of this should be roughly in the center of the eyepiece. And we don't have an eyepiece in there just yet. We have desiccant to help with water management, moisture management. And we have counterweights to balance the scope. And there's a lens cap at the top. So I'm actually going to bring the scope, top of the scope down so I can get that lens cap off, because otherwise we won't be seeing much. Doing the handheld tour of the 6-inch actually has some advantages because I can bring the camera around and show you the lens in the tube of the scope. Again, that's the 6-inch aperture lens. Bring it back down. And I will have to free my hand up to get the eyepiece in, because you don't want to play a risky game when you're dealing with this kind of equipment. But so just bear with me here a moment. I'm just going to put the phone down for a second so that I can switch the eyepieces and move the counterweights. I'm going to use this 40mm eyepiece. Nice wide field, perfect for the moon. Put the phone down right where the eyepieces are for a second. All right, we are nearly ready to go here. The telescope does track the sky. It will track the moon as it moves across the sky due to the Earth's rotation. But in order to do that, we got to turn it on. We have a switch here. Turn on tracking. It won't find the object, but it will track as the tracking system. On the equatorial mount, so that's going to be using, like we talked about earlier, the equatorial grid, the celestial sphere, right ascension and declination. That's the advantage of the equatorial mount. It is far easier to track an object with that system. Move the ladder around right now. And I'm going to double check the chat here. Give you a nice view out the window while I do that. Looks like the feed's coming through okay. Well, Lunaz says we should take a minute to see Jupiter. It has a transition taking place right now, and you can see the moon on the planet. Ah, I wonder what moon it is. Yeah, we might be able to bounce to that. I'm going to get it set up on the moon first, and then we'll check inside to see what the what Jupiter's doing. I will have to use a different camera system and bring my other computer in here to observe planets. It's going to be a different rig to this, although we might be able to do it with the phone setup. We can try. Yeah, we can try. So we'll see what we can do there. But for now, let's see. I need to. No, we want to be on this side if we can. If we can. Not sure if we'll be able to. Let's see if we have the room. Maybe. Maybe. Let's see if we're gonna, nope, we're gonna crash. So you can see there are points in the mount of the telescope where it can crash into itself. So right here is where it would crash. So I can't put it on this side. I have to put it on the opposite side. So we're going to rotate around. It's a big telescope to navigate, but it moves really easily. Okay. I'm trying to give you as good of a perspective on this as possible here. So we switched it to the other side of the mount. And we'll, oh, I could probably give you a view through the viewfinder here. Yeah, just about. We're kind of pointed into the dome here, so let's adjust that. We'll give it a spin. And we'll try and align with the moon in the viewfinder. Here we go. There we go. All right. Now this is going to be the trick, at least with the setup we're currently using, is can I expose to the moon properly? Or is it going to be too bright? Let's see what the eyepiece is doing. Bear with me a sec. Maybe knock it down with a moon sensor. I can find one. So let's go in, zoom in here with the 6-inch view. This is where the adapter will come into play. So there's the disk of the moon. But you see it's way overexposed. Oh, that's working though. There we go. It's adapting. All right, very nice. I think if we get the adapter on there, we'll probably have some luck getting the exposure just right. Let's go grab that. And this might be better if we were able to do this on Zoom. So maybe I will try that next time. What did I do with the adapter? Oh, it's over here. So this is the adapter we talked about earlier. We're going to hook that up to the eyepiece. I think I don't have to put you down for a moment just to get that hooked on. Right, and we'll get this mounted here. The adapter fits in, you tighten this retention screw, and that's going to tighten the grip, the claw, onto the eyepiece. And that's really important because you don't want this mount falling off. So you want to test it a little bit here, make sure it's tight, it's not going to snap, and we're just about ready to go. So I would start by moving, if you have an adapter like this, move it all the way out away from the eyepiece because you don't want to scratch the lenses together. And you're going to slide the phone into the mount here. It slides open, fits the phone right in. So here we go. All right, so it's mounted. You're looking right towards the eyepiece here. Make sure it feels secure. The phone's not going anywhere. And we're going to move it towards the eyepiece. You're just going to get it aligned, adjusting all the axes. My mount, I think, could do with some tightening. It's a little bit loose in some spots, but we'll make it work here. And then you also might need to do some focusing. I'm using the scope itself here to bring it into center. I'm using the motor drive on the scope. And then you can use even the focus knobs to get a sharper image. The phone's going to do some of that for you, but you might as well use the mechanical equipment on the scope to really get that sharp focus. And that's not too bad. Try and get a little bit of a better exposure here. This is where maybe another application might serve us better than the one we're using right now. But for tonight, it'll do for our discussion. This is not the rig we'd use for the lunar eclipse. This is more just for demonstration on what you might be able to do with your equipment. We'll be sure to deliver a high quality stream out to you for that event. But for now, let's see. Lower my brightness here. I don't need it up all the way. Go. And I think we are ready to leave it as is, and I can head back inside, warm up a little bit. All right, I'm going to head inside and see what that looks like. I'm going to mute this device so you don't get any background noise when we go back in. All right, we are back. Let's see if my audio is back here. Yep, it's back. Okay, so this, I'm not super pleased with the quality of footage that's coming back from that camera. It's not the camera's fault by any means. This is a function of the bit rate. So the quality of stream that's coming, because this is a wireless setup. So this is really, that's the primary issue we're dealing with at the moment, is the stream quality. So it's really not that foggy. It looks really foggy for some reason, but that's not the case for the true image that was showing up on the device itself. So maybe, I don't know, we can try and work around that. But for now, I'm going to warm up inside for a little bit and field your questions here. If you have any, feel free to submit them in the chat, and I will be happy to answer those for you. I think I saw a couple already, so I will answer those. Let me get my background back here. It is if you are wondering, it is a physical thing. It's mounted on a whiteboard. So let's see what we have. Oh, we were also going to check out maybe in Stellarium what Jupiter was doing. Someone suggested there might be an interesting transit event happening. Oh, well, that's what I'm here for, Jackie. You're so welcome. I'm glad you are all sticking around for the troubleshooting. It's kind of fun to see that perspective a little bit and try something new too, which is what we're doing tonight in preparation for the Lunar Eclipse event that will be in November. Let's see. Stacy asks, how can a teenager become an intern at Kopernik? Yeah, we usually it starts at ninth grade, maybe 8th grade occasionally, depending on the situation. But yeah, 8th to 9th grade is when you can apply to become an intern here at Kopernik Observatory and Science Center. And a lot of that information is available on our website, kopernik.org. In fact, I can show you here. We'll transition from the moon for a second. Let's go back here. So, yeah, there we go. Let's go to our website, and you go under volunteering to the high school internship program. And this gives you some information about it. There is a paper application and an online application. So you can go use either of those. I mean, I know, Stacy, you frequent Kopernik. So if you want to just deliver us a paper application and chat with us a little bit about it, you are welcome to do it that way, or just submit an online application, and we will reach out most likely through email in that regard. This is the place to go to learn how to become a high school intern at Kopernik. And that's actually, incidentally, how I started up at Kopernik as well. I started in 9th grade and just loved the place so much. I'm so happy that through my college education, I was able to stick with it and for it to be a job in the end. And it has been a place that I've been able to grow with, and the internship program is very valuable in that regard. Great question. Yeah, someone's who said that? I missed it here. Oh, B is mentioning that it seems to be right near the edge of the eyepiece. And yeah, that is unfortunately, if we go back to this, that is a function of the one of the axes is a little bit loose on that mount I showed you. So it's sagging a little bit, and I can't get exact center on the field of view. So I need to tighten that adapter up a little bit. So this proved that point for sure. Yeah, Matabale, our director, posted our speeds in the chat here. Yeah, we have plenty of bandwidth. That's not so much the issue. It's more, I think, of the application that we went with tonight, and I might have to tweak some settings to get that bit rate up to give us a more quality stream. But this is why we troubleshoot here. Simon says, are these all craters we are seeing, or can we also see mountains? So, yeah, what we're seeing right now in the image, and it is kind of fuzzy. We were chatting about how the view isn't as crisp because the quality of the stream. This is on a wireless camera that's outside. It's not coming through at high enough bit rate, so it looks fuzzy in comparison to what it actually looks like locally on the screen out there. So I apologize for that. But beyond that, the contrast we're seeing between the dark and the light, that's the mare, or the seas of the moon, and those are cooled lava lakes across the surface. And you might just about be able to see the crater Tycho at the very top left of the disk of the moon at about 10 o'clock. That is crater Tycho, and it's a big impact zone. The ejecta from that impact stretches miles and miles and miles, almost halfway across the surface of the moon. Yeah, Matambale, I do, for the streams like the Lunar Eclipse in May, or the Jupiter stream even, I often do plug in hardwired with an Ethernet cable because I really, those major events are worth ensuring that we have the clearest picture possible. Whereas today, to some degree, I am testing a few things. So based on the performance as of right now, I mean, I'll do some more troubleshooting on my own time here, but I'm not super thrilled with this version of the setup. And it is not a good representation of what you'd end up with your camera hooked up to a telescope, mind you, or your smartphone hooked up to a telescope. I've gotten far better images than what we're seeing here. A lot of it is just because it's being streamed wirelessly. And again, it might be this application as well. I don't have the settings tweaked quite right. All right. All right. So we were going to go check out Jupiter in just a moment. Before we do, I do want to welcome anyone that's new to the stream. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, definitely do so. We'd love to hear where you're from and what your skies are like at the time can you see the moon like we can? And are you excited for the lunar eclipse, perhaps? That it was a big discussion earlier on in the session, learning how you can watch that eclipse event from where you are. And also watch with us when we stream it out on November 8th. So yeah, introduce yourself in the chat. You do have to subscribe to the channel, and that's purely as a moderator tool, because sometimes these live streams get a little bit overwhelming and the chat becomes useless if we don't try and slow it down a bit. So yeah, just keep that in mind. All right. I had another thought too. And if you are in a position to support Kopernik through a contribution, you can just click on the heart shape in the chat, and that is a donation link that actually just pops right up in the chat and asks you, it gives you some specific donation options, or you can do a custom one. And it does pop up in the chat too if you say so. You can check a box there. Yeah, we really Kopernik is a nonprofit organization, so it's through the kindness of supporters like you that we stick around and do these live streams, and we have our in-person programs up here. So we greatly appreciate your support. These fundraisers that you can see at the top of the chat, or should be able to, we are 400 in, actually, because of Simon's donation, we are $471 out of our $2,000 goal for the fall. It's not for this stream. So we're almost a quarter of the way to our goal for the fall season. And yeah, we greatly appreciate your support there, Simon. Thank you so much. And of course, you can also show your support to Kopernik through subscribing to the channel and clicking the thumbs up button, because that shows the level of engagement that YouTube likes to see, the likes. And it helps us get to a wider audience, which is really our goal here, is to share astronomy with the world. So and we've done that. It's been great to hear where people are from. We have Tommy from Tucson, Arizona. Partly cloudy sky and a fully visible moon. Very good. So you're having some good luck with your skies here. Our stream early on, if you go back to the very beginning, it started out actually pretty cloudy. I was surprised how cloudy it was when I first got up here this evening. And it was I was glad to see it clear pretty quick. We kept switching back and forth between the camera views, and it cleared out pretty nicely in the end, so we were thrilled with that. Okay. So let's bounce back to Stellarium here. And again, the link to visit Stellarium is in this video's description. That brings you to the main page. I'll just do a very quick review here. This is stellarium.org, again, link in description. And this is your at-home planetarium. So you actually get a planetarium you can try at home. And this is what it looks like. You can pan around the sky. You can set your location down here too, by the way. Pan around, look at what you can see. There was a whole tutorial of sorts at the beginning of this stream. So afterwards, I always put chapters on our stream so that you can follow up and rewatch parts you missed and know exactly where to go. So look out for that. There was a little bit of a tutorial after this stream ends. You'll be able to go back and access that. I see we're at below 40 degrees now. I just saw the weather change up there. So yeah, 39 degrees, a little bit chilly outside, heading towards wintry weather in New York here. So yeah, anyways, I'm so sorry. I didn't transition that slide. There we go. So yeah, stellarium.org. This is the website that link in the description will bring you to, and this is what it looks like, where you have a sky you can pan around, see the entire thing. You can zoom out to see the full sky. You really get some weird views here. 360-degree view of the sky for you to check out. And you can even turn off the ground to see what is below the horizon. So it's pretty neat. But for now, let's use this to try and find what's going on with Jupiter. Someone mentioned early on that there was an interesting transit event. You can use this button to target Jupiter, and we'll zoom on in. Oh, perhaps we missed it. Oh no, that's Amathea? I never know how to pronounce that one. Really should look it up. So here are the Galilean moons. Nope, that's a star. Where is Io? Is Io the one that's transiting? Oh, that's another small one. Maybe it's behind. Let's travel through time and find out where Io went. Yep. Ah, so it's not a transit event. It's an occultation. Let's back up here. Oh, no, Europa was a transit event, and that's one we may have missed as well. So you can see Europa here. This is the moon Europa. And this is the shadow of Europa projected onto Jupiter. So that is a transit event. Those can be cool to watch through a scope. And then this here is an occultation event. Io is emerging, and Jupiter would have passed in front of it earlier too, so if we can go back to that point. And that can be kind of cool to see as well. But it really shows you the power of this at-home planetarium. And this is available on mobile devices as well, so look up Stellarium there too. Now, unfortunately, that's almost 1 a.m., and that's beyond what my plan was to conclude this stream tonight at midnight, so I think we're going to have to miss that this evening. I'm readying myself for the eclipse event here. So that's gonna... Oh, that looks pretty weird. Why is that? Anyways. Yeah, I'm readying myself for the 2:30 a.m. program. So I gotta make sure I do get my sleep beyond that point. We are a month out from the eclipse event, so make sure you are thinking of ways that you can see that if it's in your area. Stellarium is a great way to check if the eclipse will be visible. I'm just looking at the sky here out of curiosity, because things are starting to change. Orion is rising up in the sky now. That's nice. Oh no, this is at 1 a.m. Yes, it is just rising up in the sky right now, and it was getting higher at 1 in the morning. Mars is up. We are definitely going to do a Mars live stream coming soon. Maybe we'll do a couple. Maybe we'll get one in November and one in early December. Oh, actually, since some of our tech kind of failed us tonight, I'm just gonna, in the next 10 minutes, we'll spend answering questions and just kind of exploring the sky a bit here in Stellarium. So this is a great time to chat if you have a question about the eclipse or anything in the sky, camera systems or whatever you like. This is a good time. We'll spend the next 10 minutes or so doing that before we wrap up the stream. But I do want to show you something with Mars. I believe that's happening around the same time it is going to be on close approach. So it could be a very good astrophotography event. So let's see if we can spot this in Stellarium here. And I think it is happening the day before close approach, which, if I recall, is also the 8th. Let's find out. Yes, that is right. The 8th is close approach. The 7th is the day of this event. So we're going to target the moon, like we've done a few times today. Oh, wow, this could actually be a really nice picture. Wait, let's go back up, or go forward to the 7th. Oh no, it's getting further away. Well, there's actually 3 interesting opportunities here. Let's see here. I'm reading your questions and comments in the chat. Stacey says, yes, we love Mars. I agree. It's going to be a great opportunity again to finally observe it. So we're really looking forward to that. It'll be nice and close, and we'll actually be able to see some good detail. Simon says, if those are lava fields, when was the last lunar volcano? So the lava fields that are on the moon, the cool lava plains, those seas, those dark patches on the moon, they weren't of volcanic origin necessarily. There was an era of heavy bombardment in the solar system. It wasn't just the moon getting pelted with asteroids, meteoroids, and maybe even comets. It was also the Earth. It was every object in the solar system. This is where a lot of objects gained some extra mass. And the moon was no exception. So during this era of heavy bombardment, there was so much hitting the moon, it actually melted the surface and caused those lava plains to form. So they weren't volcanic in origin. They're so large and vast because it was actually just the surface melting. Great question. Now, Matambale says, Colorado sky report. Clear, moon and Jupiter very bright enough to mow the lawn under. But out of deference to the neighbors, I think I'll wait till tomorrow to do that. Sounds like a plan. That is one advantage to full moons, of course, is that you can kind of navigate outside reasonably well without a flashlight. You can see your shadow from a full moon. Yeah, just like Tommy's saying here, always love a moon shadow at night in my backyard. Yeah, it's certainly a bright enough object for that. I think we discussed in the last stream on Jupiter. I recall an experiment done on capturing a shadow from Venus, because Venus does get bright enough that it will project a shadow in the right lighting situation. So you kind of have to funnel Venus's light to capture that shadow effect, and mitigate any other major lighting sources around it. But yeah, you can project a shadow from Venus. So the couple of events here. First is one I didn't necessarily realize, is how close the moon will be to Pleiades. And that could lead to a really nice astrophoto, a really nice wide field photo where you have the moon. Actually, using the lens I had on the camera we talked about today, that was on the moon early on in the stream, we could zoom out to max and capture Pleiades and the moon. And even on my tracking mount, that'd be the way to go. That way I don't have to keep rushing outside. to adjust things. It just tracks it consistently, and we don't have to adjust. That would be a nice stream to do, in fact, the Moon and Pleiades. So that's December 6th. We could capture those two objects in the same field of view. All right, let's keep going to the 7th. So watch this, ready? Watch the Moon and watch Mars. Actually, let's target the Moon again. Moon. And let's travel in time here. We're on the December 7th. See that? The Moon gets very close to Mars. If we zoom in here, you'll notice it is completely behind the Moon. So let me target Mars as it comes out the other side. So here we are. We'll target Mars, and we'll zoom in on it. So what you'll be able to do, this is not going to be without its challenges, because Mars is bright, and it will be bright, but the Moon is much brighter. And this is going to be, looks like roughly a full moon, if not a full moon as well. Yeah, it will be a full moon. So that's going to be a challenge. But you'll notice we get an occultation here as well, where you can almost have, this is moving forward in time, so Mars is passing behind the Moon here, and then it's a very narrow, it's not a long time. Let's see, when it starts, it'll be about 10:42 or so. And when it ends, it'll be 11:08. So it's going to be a short period, but it'll be really cool to image and to observe. So yeah, I'm going to see what we can do for the 7th as well, because these occultations do change a little bit based on where you're located too, which is kind of neat. So I'm glad we're able to see it here, but it's very close to the rim of the Moon. But yeah, getting a picture of these craters on the Moon, plus it's like a Mars rise on the Moon. How cool is that? So getting some detail on the surface of Mars, that'll be quite the show. And then finally, on the 8th, I don't think there's like a necessarily a noticeable. Yeah, it's not too noticeable, the difference. Yeah, even the AU is staying the same. And in fact, it's estimating the brightness will be a little bit dimmer. Yeah, I think that's a lie. Oh no, it's true. 1.87 on the 6th. Maybe the close approach really is that evening, because beyond that point, it starts to drop off on the 8th. So I'll double check the timing. But yeah, close approach is when, just like we had Jupiter close approach, we're going to have Mars close approach. And that's when the effect with Mars is more dramatic, because it's such a tiny planet, and it is closer to us. So when it gets extra close to us, we get to see that much more detail. It is pretty impressive, the distinction. When Mars is at its furthest point from Earth, there's almost no, I don't want to say there's no reason to observe it, but it is still cool to see through a telescope but you'll be hard-pressed to see much detail at all. You might see some contrast. Maybe you'll just catch the white of the polar ice caps, but beyond that, it's going to be a challenge. Whereas during close approach, you can get a lot more detail. You'll see Syrtis Major. The polar ice caps will become a lot more clear. We did some Mars observing streams during the last close approach, and I think we've come a long way since then, so hopefully we'll be able to give you some good captures of the red planet for this close approach. So that's maybe a 3-day event, potentially, if we have a string of clear skies. I'm not sure how likely that is, but we'll see what we can do for that conjunction event and the close approach event. But it'd be pretty cool to see that Mars rise on the moon. All right, let's see what we have here. We're heading towards stream end. I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to tonight, but that's all right. I think we had a valuable stream out of this all the same. Matambale asks, why does the far side of the moon have only a few seas, like very few seas on that side? It's mostly cratered. And I'm not sure if there's scientific consensus on this or not. I've heard some explanations. I think one being that side of the moon takes the brunt of impacts compared to the Earth-facing side. That could be. If you think about it, it is facing outward, whereas the side that faces us faces inward towards the Earth. So in a way, I guess you could consider it's more protected. But if you're thinking era of heavy bombardment, that would be a side of the moon that, if it did see more impacts, it would get hit a lot more, causing more seas. But by proxy, maybe that means the impacts also over time, over the billions of years since that era, have destroyed most of the evidence of those on that side of the moon. So that could be as well. You'll find that there are impact zones in the seas, and you can see how it ruffles them up a little bit. And you sort of lose that contrast in those impact zones. So maybe there's some sense to that. But those areas of the moon are very smooth. They're very planar. So that's what we're missing on the far side of the moon. Yeah, I agree with you, Montabali. They are interesting to read about. There was a recent animation. I think I saw it through NASA's social media, but I'm not sure where the origin of the study. But it was a recent animation of the moon's formation, a recent simulation of that event, and it was fascinating to watch because in the end, it gave us our moon. That was the simulation showed that it was a cataclysmic impact of a protoplanet smashing into a proto-Earth, and that mathematically, that could have been how the moon formed. We saw it play out right in that simulation there. So while it's still undetermined, that is the official way that the moon formed. That's our leading theory into why, into how it formed early on in the solar system, and why we had it from such an early stage. Because we do know how old the moon is, and it does add up with that era where a lot of impacts were happening between massive objects. All right. So unless there are any final questions, and I'll be happy to answer those after I'll check with the chat one more time after I'm done with my final thoughts here. So, the next stream here at Kopernik is going to be one of our FNLs, our Friday night live streams. And if we go to back to the website here, it's called How to Transform Your Home with Clean Heating and Cooling Technologies, presented by Adam Flint. He's the Director of Clean Energy Programs at the Network for a Sustainable Tomorrow, or NEST. And I think we actually just went through and updated our HVAC system here at Kopernik. So it's going to be very relevant to what we did here. And maybe it will help inform you on where you might go in the future at your residence. Then we are going to skip FNL the week after and replace it with an NSL. So if you're still learning our acronyms here, FNL is Friday Night Live Stream. Those are usually more presentation oriented. And NSL are the observing programs. So that's Night Sky Live. That's what this one is. And those are primarily observing events. So we're going to do our best to cover the Orionid meteor shower. It is around the new moon, so our hope is that it will be a good show for us this year. Perseids didn't work out. We talked earlier how the Draconids also are technically tonight, but not working out as well because of the full moon. So we'll try this meteor shower here and see what we can see. It's scheduled for October 21st at 8 p.m. There is an in-person version of this program that we're inviting people to come up if our skies are clear. But the online version will be the 21st. Actually, you can see here, there's two options for in-person. And that's the same for virtual as well. We'll try and cover it whatever day's clear. And we may even push into Sunday for the virtual version of the event. In-person is only Friday and Saturday. But if we find Sunday is going to be clear, we'll push for coverage of the meteor shower with our YouTube channel. Then we follow with What's in a Name from Zoe Lerner-Pontario from the Cornell Space Planetary Imaging Facility. I do want to mention again Hocus Pocus, a haunting night at the Observatory. This is an in-person only event. If you can come visit us on site, we're going to celebrate Halloween on October 29th with 3 sessions from 6 to 9 p.m., 3-hour-long sessions where people will tour the observatory, collect some treats around in each area of the Science Center, and they'll do some activities as well that have a Halloween theme to them. So this is the second version of second year of Hocus Pocus. It started last year, and people seem to really enjoy it, so we're going to keep it up, and maybe we will see you there. There's more information. Here we're also going to open up registrations for this event online, so stay tuned for online registration, and that way you can participate in this very, very fun program. So our full list is available both for our FNLs and our observing live streams on our YouTube channel too. For probably most people that are viewing, perhaps at this point, are not local to the area. So just know that we're going to continue to support our live streams and interact with you in the chat. And that's a big push for us. That's really why we focus on live stream content because it's an opportunity to engage with you, whereas we really wouldn't be able to do as much of that in produced videos. So we hope you are enjoying it. If you are and you're in a position to donate to Kopernik tonight, you can click the heart in the chat, and that will allow you to donate. There is also a link if you prefer to go through PayPal. There's a donation link in the video description. And it's a similar setup where you can select the amount you donate. So that's another method if you prefer to go that route. But both platforms, doing it through the YouTube live chat with the heart button or going through the link in the video description to PayPal, 100% of those proceeds go to Kopernik because we're a nonprofit organization. And that support, it really is critical for us. And we're so happy to have our supporters on the YouTube channel and in person. It is a fantastic platform to talk about the latest events in astronomy, and we're hoping to keep it up. So a lot of these funds do go towards maintaining and building the YouTube channel. So thank you again for that support. And you could, of course, support us too by hitting the thumbs up button in the video as well. That is another great way. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing. It's a way to access the live chat so you can interact with us and ask questions. And we'd love to hear where you're from and chat with you. Alrighty. So at this point, let me see what final questions and comments we have in the chat before I wrap things up. I think the clouds sometimes conspire for our meteor showers here as well on Bali. They either that or the moon, though. You can't get around the moon much. I guess you could travel somewhere else for the meteor showers, or tune in on another live stream, which is really the kind of network that we're happy to be a part of. Is sort of this informal and unofficial connection of observatories that stream out astronomical events. So it widens accessibility to those that have cloudy skies or light polluted skies. And I think that is a critical aspect of what observatories do. I think it's worth sharing that equipment, our tools, and our resources with as many people as possible. Because not everyone has access to good skies and good equipment. Oh, I see. I see. I am on Earth chatted in the total lunar eclipse stream. I'm not sure if that. I think that did just pop up. So well done. All right. So at this point, I think we're going to wrap up the stream. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I know we had some technical difficulties here and there, but in some ways now I know what not to do and what to do for the big lunar eclipse stream and the Orion and meteor shower. We're testing our limitations here, so it will, as usual, we'll make sure that those are nice and clear for you for those events. But thanks for tuning in all the same. And I think we had a good conversation tonight. So with that said, as always, look up and dream big, and we will see you on the next stream.